want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Hey y'all, you know what time it is. Merry Christmas, y'all.
What's happening?
You know what time it is.
You know what time it is. Hey, if you don't know now, you know I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just having real conversations for you.
For you.
For you.
We got a serious topic today, man.
We do.
First of all, you know, I believe in starting off with thanks.
Thank you.
And I want to thank super producer Nikki Nicole.
Man.
I'm telling you.
I mean, a fat kid.
She hooked us up with some homemade cookies.
From scratch.
I'm telling you, man. These are the kind of cookies that when you eat them, you can hear it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? On the inside and outside. Eat some good cookies.
Yeah, she didn't turn my partner into a crackhead and be on the floor in a minute.
She's like an in-house Keebler elf. I'm telling you, man, that's some good stuff. Anyhow, thankful.
Just thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
The cookies.
We don't deserve you. We appreciate you. We appreciate you big time.
Appreciate it.
All right, man.
Ready?
Yeah. So, you know, it's been kind of in the news lately.
That time of year, too.
Well, it is that time of year, actually, based on even some of the research. But, you know, it's been in the news a lot that most recently and most loudly anyway, I'm sure there's been others. But the, you know, former producer and DJ for the Ellen Show, you know, moved on, passed on. And all reports indicate that it was at his own hands or at his own behest. And so I think this is a topic worth talking about, man. What do you think?
I think it is. I mean, it's one of the things, especially with the subject matter that we cover, to not cover this subject would be just dismissive and you know, sad on our part because, I mean, men are 4 times more likely to self-cancel than women.
Yeah.
And with, you know, we have all the good things that are coming from, you know, the ladies first move and everything else, but what seems to be happening a lot of times is guys are kind of getting forgotten about. Yeah. And especially coming up into the holiday season. I mean, the holiday season, I know I've taught several of my friends off the ledge when I used to live up in Ski Town and everybody stayed working for Christmas and the holidays and people would see family and stuff. So the holidays can be very lonely. It's lonely enough to be to do, but being around the holidays as a guy, maybe without family, is really, really hard.
And, you know, elephant in the room is these days, particularly on social media, you aren't even allowed to say the S word.
Right.
And so, you know, to be clear, we're talking about ending one's own life when we say self-delete or deletion or anything along those lines. And so for the sake of all of the interwebs, because we are on KLDC 1220 AM in the Mile High City, as well as the interwebs everywhere. And for the sake of all of those outlets and blocking and whatever they call it, censoring and all that kind of stuff, demonetizing, all that kind of junk, we'll use the public correctness, the PC correctness of it all. And
well, even we had this conversation before we even got on earlier today. Just doing research.
Yeah,
you go onto YouTube and you type in the search word for that, the S word. And if it actually brings up anything, it's, you know, what is it? Intense content or something. You know, is making sure that you know that this is some content that may be talking about this subject matter. It's like, well, yeah, I'm doing research, and can I get in there?
And you know, the stuff gets blocked, and it kind of goes to the foundation of like, man, we can't really even openly talk about the topic. And so I almost wonder from a societal perspective, are we trying to pretend like it doesn't exist? Like, are we trying to turn our heads and pretend until it rears its ugly head, until you get a guy like Twitch Boss, that kind of goes out that way? And statistics have, most people know that, 22 veterans a day and all those kinds of things. And so, until it shows up, we kind of tend to want to pretend like it ain't there as a culture, I think.
Well, I think that's kind of the push now. There's such a fear. I don't know where this came from, but there seems to be such a fear. If you talk about something, somebody's going to do it.
Yeah.
But that's completely opposite. If you don't talk about something, somebody's most likely going to do it. If we don't talk about the depression in men, we don't talk about the higher rates of suicide, we don't talk about these things that are causing such a higher rate of suicide in men nowadays. And we cover it a lot of times with what makes a good man and what keeps a man going in life, and that's purpose and feeling like he's worthwhile and all these things. Well, with a lot of the things going on today, with a lot of guys getting left in relationships, not being able to see their kids, maybe having issues at work, all these things are being taken away from them, and there's less and less talk about this nowadays. Plus, there's less and less support from it. And for a lot of times, and for a lot of guys, they've just been raised with psych it up, be a man, men don't cry. So they're already been trained against talking about, hey, I'm struggling. Hey, I have this going on. And if we don't talk about it, then we end up having these higher statistics that we do, because depression is the main issue that causes self-canceling, but it's really the lack of ability or feeling hopeless that there's nothing I can do to change this. There's nothing I can do to reach out and find support somewhere. There's nothing out there for me. And those are all aspects that lead to somebody going, I don't even know why I'm here.
Yeah, I think one of the unfortunate realities is, culturally speaking, again, as men, we aren't trained, raised, we aren't conditioned, or whatever you want to call it, for it to be okay, for it to be acceptable to not have a good day, and to not have a good month, and to not have a good year. And maybe the last 5 or 10 years have been terrible. And so, that there's that implication that nobody wants to hear a complaining man. Like, nobody wants to hear, a man's misery. Nobody wants to hear your sad story. I mean, these are the messages that I'm talking about. These are the messages that I feel like us as men, we get that. I think, across the board, we experience these things from a cultural perspective that, we're not supposed to need help. We're not supposed to need support. We're not supposed to need backup. We're not supposed to need healing, all these other kind of things. We're supposed to just be a warrior and keep getting up and doing it the next day, and, putting up with whatever it is we got to put up with, and just deal with it. Just suck it up, buttercup, cowboy up. I mean, how many of those phrases do you know, that are part of our language? And so as a culture, I think, at the core of that whole issue is the reality that us as men, for the most part, especially, men of our generation or so, it's new to talk about feelings. It's new to talk about how I'm doing, and to be connecting with other guys, and even having conversations like this, man. It's new to do that, having open man conversations. By the way, if you're watching us live, as a matter of fact, you can type a comment, and we'll see it live. If you're not watching us live on social media, because we are on Facebook, YouTube, all the interwebs, all that stuff, you can boom.
Just like that.
Lisa, just getting back from Vegas, she was at the Olympia competition. I saw you, girl. Reaching out to others is numero uno. So many people have self-canceling ideations, but don't reach out. Keep up the great work. We thank you, my sister. Love you. Big hugs to you next time I see you. But yeah, I mean, and thank you for that. And likewise, if you have a comment, you put it right, man. JBK will make you famous. He'll put it right up on the screen. But yeah, anyhow, I think as a culture, it's something that we, largely speaking, as men, are raised to be anti-help.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is especially it's been really interesting looking back, doing research on the different generational aspects. We had our generation where it was suck it up and don't ask for help, and if you ask for help, then you're weak, and talking about your feelings makes you weak. And then we get into our generation becomes parents, and one of them goes, well, I'm not going to repeat what my parents did. And then they kind of became helicopter parents, and they want to make sure there was no challenges in their child's life at all. And now we have a lot more kids self-canceling because they don't have any sort of experience in how to relegate themselves emotionally, or regulate themselves and deal with the harsh realities of the world. And so we're having this, and it comes down to the same end result of feeling hopeless, feeling like there's nothing I can do. There's no way, no place for me to get help, and I can't reach out to anybody. And once you get to that place where the inner voice, I know for our generation, that was a big thing. We had all these stories and examples of suck it up and be a man and don't say anything. And so you create the story in your head of, well, I must not be good enough because I feel these things. I feel less than, I feel worthless, I feel not respected. I've been a failure, this and that. And when you don't have an experience of how to deal with those things, then it becomes a voice in your head on repeat telling you, well, you're not worth it. And there's nothing out there to help you with this. And so at some point you go, well, I'm obviously a failure and a burden. So I need to take myself out. And what's really interesting, especially from the research, a lot of men who do this seem to be having it all together on the outside because they are doing their best to act like they've got it all together. And then when they self-cancel it, people are like, I would never expect that guy. Well, every person is struggling. And if that one guy who's making it all about everybody else is not getting any support or asking for support, that means he's hiding and stuffing and out picturing, putting all of his stuff out to everybody else because he doesn't feel like he's good enough to ask for support. So then he's going, well, I'll take care of everybody else. But if they really knew, and then while he's taking care of his family and his work and his spouse and everybody else, he feels less than, and like somehow he's a burden to all of them, and it would just be better for him to leave.
Yeah, I mean, and we do get great at, we do get great at covering that thing up, man. We do get great at putting on that mask, at putting on the front, whatever it is, and we get good. That's one skill we definitely develop is, if I don't, fake it till you make it. But unfortunately, a lot of times you don't make it. So we end up just faking it. And then we feel like a fake and we feel like a failure. And we feel like everything that I'm trying to portray is really what I wish I was, not who I really believe that I am. And so so that in itself becomes a burden, because then you got that other, inner voice, constantly reminding you that you're a fake, constantly reminding you that, man, you're not this and you're not that. And, these are the kind of things that, in particular, in the man journey, in the masculine journey, where you are supposed to be these great things. You are supposed to be a provider and a protector and, and all these other kind of things. You're supposed to have these kind of huge roles. And as men, and again, we don't even get the latitude to voice these things because normally, I feel like anyway, obviously most of this is opinion, but I feel like when we do voice it, the natural response from culture is either suck it up or, yeah, but what about us? Mm-hmm. And I think it's like, well, wait a minute, can we just have like some space can I have some space to vent? Can I have some space to grieve? And can you just listen and receive what I'm sharing, what I'm telling you? And so yeah, I mean, I think all of that is underneath the scenes. So maybe when we come back, we'll get into some stats, and maybe we'll get into some of the tangibles that we're talking about here. So
definitely dig in deeper, and this is going to be one of those deep episodes.
Yeah.
So y'all come right back. This is the Men of Masculinity on KLDC, 12 a.m. in the Mile High City. We'll be right back. I see you playing with those.
You see me wanting these cookies. By the way, if you're watching us live, check out these. We got individual tins and boxes, whatever these containers, clamshell containers. We got individual. I thought we had to share for a minute. I was giving him a hard time. I was giving him a hard time. When you gonna break out the cookies and come find out I got my own box of cookies in there? I'm like, what?
Trying to make me feel like I'm stingy when he got his own box.
You know they good when some of the chocolate is sticking to the box. You know what I'm saying? That ain't been in the box for like a week. You know they good when some of the chocolate is like smudged up against the side of the box. The chocolate is just like, help me out.
Next week's episode, Kirk's food reviews.
And it's even written on the outside, joy to the world. Boom. Hey, you got some stats?
I have a few stats. I read some.
You know what I didn't? Hey, Nikki, do you have an extra hand in there, extra minute? Can you look up the 1-800 number for suicide prevention line?
Oh, I can.
Well, the problem is I can't use my phone.
I can get it right here.
Okay.
I can pull it up.
I'm using my phone for the stream, so I can't look it up. Okay. No, we need you. No, we need you. That ain't it. Boom.
I will find it.
All right.
Bring us back, sir.
All right. And we're back.
We're back.
We are back. Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM, Mile High City, interwebs everywhere. I just got a text on my phone. I don't know who it's from.
Well, don't worry about it.
Oh, okay.
We're busy doing stuff.
Yeah, I got stuff to do, man. Don't texting me right now, man. I'll get my baby powder out. And...
That was Nikki, I guarantee.
No, it wasn't her. It said hiker. Was that you? Oh, okay. Wasn't her. Right. Somebody else. Somebody else. Anyway, yeah, we're talking about self-canceling, to put it politically and mass medially and social medially correct.
Anti-cancel cultural.
Anti-cancel cultural.
We're actually going to talk about this because apparently in the rest of the media world, they don't want to talk about it because somehow they have gotten the erroneous idea that if we talk about it, it will give people ideas to do it.
Right.
Which is so backwards and ridiculous. It makes my head spin that these are the things that we need to talk about.
Absolutely.
To make it more healing, make people, because I mean, especially for guys, and we were talking about this before, we have been told that we've been given this whole story that we carry around in our head that becomes our little voice that just spins us out, that we're not good enough and we're only as good as what we provide. We need to suck it up and we can't have anything, any challenges or anything like that. You know, all good men are heroes and stuff like that. And, you know, and Superman, I mean, being a hero is pretty close to being a sucker. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, there's a thin line between sucker and hero. Heroes do what suckers do, but they do it for free.
They do it for free. They wear spangly outfits with a cape. But
absolutely,
it comes down to being able to talk about this is so that you can hear another voice than that voice in your head that's telling you all these things. When men close down and isolate and suck it up, and all they have is that voice in their head, that voice in their head is going to take over at some point and become, I mean, they're going to become clinically insane and clinically depressed, because if all you hear is inside your head that voice saying you're not good enough, you're worthless, you're a burden, you have no purpose, I don't even know why you're here, I don't even know why you get up, all you do is fail, and that's all you hear, you need to be talking about that. You need to talk to other men, because many other men, most of us, have that same voice. And if we talk about it, we, number one, learn we're not the only one. But number two, can let some steam off. You can open up that valve a little bit and find out from other guys that sometimes that voice in our head is a complete liar, it's completely full of it, and you need that other perspective from the guys around you to tell you, like, no, you got it going on, you got it, you can handle this, but you need to talk about it.
Yeah, you know, we're gonna get into some stats, but you know, when police officer shows up, when firefighter shows up, when plumber shows up, when proverbial handyman shows up, they show up with tools. They show up with tools to do the job that they are there to do. And one of the things that we miss in our society and in our culture, and really that we don't acknowledge as well, as men, there are a lot of tools that we need for the job that we were never given. There are a lot of tools for life. There are a lot of tools for family. There's a lot of tools for relationship. There's a lot of tools for whatever. I mean, things that go into everything that we are called to be as men that we weren't given. By far, way more than 51 out of 100 men were raised primarily by a woman. And so there were a lot of the man tools that normally, if you look back over history, were passed down from generation to generation. A son learned how to do X, Y, and Z from his father. And so, you know, we had a generation or two or whatever where, you know, the father was removed from the equation, was removed from the home, was removed from the family, was removed from even the child, or in this case, the son's life. And so a lot of those tools weren't given to us. And so we don't know how to do all of these kinds of things, you know, and we might show up as knights in shining armor, but we've been in some serious battles and we're bleeding underneath that armor, but you can't see it because you're looking at the armor on the outside, not the warrior on the inside.
Yeah, one way to look at this is, you know, we tend to focus on the external things, and that's very much the Western culture, and especially for guys. It's all about the car, it's all about the house, it's about the dress, it's about the physical appearance and all those different things. But if we were to think about the intangibles, the inner things, the things that probably are more important, but they're invisible. And because they're invisible, these are the things we don't tend to express or we tend to look at as much because it's not external, it's not visual. But as human beings and air breathers, if we were to suck the oxygen out of this room, then we would find out real quickly, even though we can't see it, how important it is. And it's the same for us as men as people in general. When we have this internal battle going on, that is more important than what's going externally. But most of us, because we haven't been given the tools or feel safe expressing those things, feel safe talking about our struggles, and because we haven't been taught, and there's not a lot of outlets for guys, unless you have a pastor and a men's group and things like that. But even then, a lot of times the churches will be like, I'm not sure what to do unless you have a church that has a men's group or something. But having a way to express and talk about those things sheds light on the inner person, that inner, more important thing, because as we know as human beings, what's as what's inside comes outside, as above so below. Your world outpictures from your inner world.
So one of the stats that I heard recently was I saw this. It was a post actually on the Be Men Facebook page, but a guy posted that men make up 49% of the population, but 80% of the self-cancels in our culture. And we were just actually having a conversation, a few guys, just a couple of days ago about the reality that, women may make those attempts in the same general ballpark, but men are more successful because quite often women use drugs or medications or pills, that can be saved before it happens, where men, do something more violent in carrying out that act. And so, anyhow, that was one of the statistics I heard. 49% of the population, 80% of the self-cancels. What kind of stats you got over there, from where?
Well, in the U.S., you get 13.42 per 100,000 individuals. Males die by self-canceling. It's 3.5 times to 4 times higher than ladies, like you were talking about. But also, the number one leading cause for self-canceling is depression. And it seems like nowadays almost everybody is depressed at some level, but because of a lack of resources for men, therapy for most guys is taboo. Talking about your feelings is taboo. Doing any of those things will get your man card taken or whatever. That's kind of how most men feel. And if you don't feel like there's an outlet, then you just suck it up, and it just tends to compound. And so you have this, what seems like a simple, oh, well, maybe I'm chemically imbalanced, or maybe I just had a bad day, maybe I didn't go to the gym, maybe all these other things that causes this depression. But when you don't deal with it, when you don't talk about it, when you don't find help for it, it just compounds and builds up until at some point. And what's interesting is I was researching something, they were talking about self-canceling survivors. And for 90% of them, when they were attempting, they felt resigned to or comforted by the fact that it's going to be over. So it's not like they were manic. It's not like they were sad. They were like, this is the best thing for everybody. I should take myself out, and I will no longer be a burden to anybody else. And so they were just resigned to this fact. Now, most of them who survived were very happy to still be here, and most of them have turned their life around and made this their modus operandi, if you will, and their passion in life to work to save other people from self-canceling.
There's a guy, I can't think of his name offhand, but it's pretty easy to find. There's a guy that one of the very few people that survived jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. And, he said as soon as he leapt, as soon as he let go or whatever, jumped, like there was instant regret. Yep. Instant regret the whole way down. And he, like I said, he happened to be one of the few people that survived. And now his whole mission in life is to go around and tell that particular story. But yeah, I mean, in terms of numbers, in terms of statistics, I mean, it's, even if you just think about the one that everybody heard, 22 veterans a day. I mean, guys in our military, man, they carry these memories, these thoughts, these demons around with them. And, they're with them when they sleep. They're with them when they're awake. They're with them when they hear a loud noise. They're with them when they hear no noise. I mean, they're with them when something triggers that. And man, it's so unfortunate. The only way to get away from that is to completely go away.
Yeah, and it is sad that it is so demonized that even in the military, where PTSD is so prevalent, because that's what they do. They go to war, they fight battles, their lives are in danger, they're on, high alert for safety, and then for years on, some of these guys go to between 3 and 7 deployments. That's 14 months at a time in an active war zone. Then they come back and there's a lack of support for their traumas and their PTSD, their depressions, the things they go through. And I was watching a guy who went through that and attempted to self-cancel, didn't succeed, thankfully, but then he was ostracized by the Army because they considered that to be treasonous or unbecoming an officer or whatever, because he was suffering from PTSD, depression, and tried to self-cancel.
That's, man, it's one of those things that, when you're facing that battle, and I have a confession when we come back from this break, but when you're facing that battle, man, the battle rages mostly on the inside, and you manifest or you see it everywhere on the outside as well. But I'm telling you, man, it's something that it's a relentless thing for those guys, and for anybody that finds himself in that situation. And like I said, the deep pain is that you have to suffer in silence. The deep pain is that you do have to deal with it, because there's all kinds of things that come along with that. So,
yeah, and as a guy, you've been trained to do that. You've been trained to suffer in silence. You've been trained to suck it up and put your boots on and keep moving. But if you're having these thoughts, if things are coming up, if you're not ready to talk to somebody, you don't feel safe, at least do something like write those thoughts down. Get them out of your head, write them on paper, because at least if you can have some kind of outlet and write those down, and then you can come back later on and reread those. Maybe when you're in a more stable state of mind, you can at least see how out of control your thoughts are, where this might be taking you, and maybe that'll help you move to the next step of actually talking to somebody.
Yeah, because when it does, when it lives on the inside, man, it's that voice gets loud, man, and that voice sounds like yours. I mean, that it's like, man, I always say the devil's a ventriloquist, man, because that voice sounds just like mine. And so, when it does rage on the inside, man, it's not a conversation, it's a monologue. And when you have those kind of negative TED Talks going on in your head, man, it's relentless. And so, to be able to get that out, to be able to express those things, and to be able to even share those things, it just makes all the difference in the world, just like this next break. So let's take a break. What do you think?
Let's take a break. I thought we were taking a break.
Yeah, we're going to take a break. All right, we'll be right back. Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM, and on the interwebs everywhere. We'll be right back.
You just stopped talking. I thought we were breaking.
I know. No, that was just thoughts going on my head. It was happening on the inside. Happening on the inside there.
We'll dig some more into it. I think the fourth segment will do, things to help.
I'm gonna tell my story now.
Yeah.
Boom. Boom, dig it.
You got a story.
I got a story.
And we're back. We're back. On KLDC. We're shooting from the hip.
I gave him the pointy finger, and
shooting McGavin across the table.
I did.
What's going on?
Pointy finger. Sure did, man.
I gotta go. It's time to go.
No doubt, man. No doubt, man.
So, as we're talking about the self-canceling world and talking over the statistics and things and why men are so much more likely, you said you had a story, something you wanted to express yourself there.
So this was probably 2013, 2012. I really kind of got to the point now where I, not one of those, the date and all that other kind of stuff. But man, I found myself, I was sleeping in the back of my car. Had a great job, lived in a cul-de-sac, 5-bedroom house, wife, 2 kids and a cat. I was the funniest guy you knew. Everybody loved it when I was around. And I was in church, going to church. Matter of fact, I was the guy at the front door greeting you when you got there. And everybody talked about how great of a greeter I was at church. And and I was that guy, and I was probably one of the most miserable people on the inside that you could ever meet. You talk about tears of a clown. I put on that makeup every time I left the house. And then, and like I said, in this particular valley, I was sleeping in the back of my car, man. And I would go to this was at the end of my second marriage. And, I would go to the office in the morning, I would shower and get ready there. But otherwise, I was sleeping in the back of my car outside of a hospital nearby. And I chose that hospital just because it's common for, well, anyhow, whatever. And so, man, you talk about that I'm using that voice. I'm using the term voice in air quotes. I'm not talking about like audible voices, in my case anyway. But that voice, man, it's like, you got to be kidding me, man. You hear again, like, man, you yet a failure again, like another time. Look at you, man. You got this, you got that, and and here you are. I mean, just the relentless over and over and over again, man. It just, here you are sleeping in the back of your car, man, and look at you, man. You suck. You're miserable. Nobody really loves you. Nobody, and if they knew you, they definitely wouldn't love you. I mean, if they knew what a miserable person you are, and your own father didn't love you, and nobody that's ever been in a relationship has ever loved you, and so on and so forth, just on and on and on, man. And I had my proverbial dark night of the soul. I had that night, man, where I won't go into too many details because I think it could trigger somebody. But yeah, I was about 5 or 6 pounds of pressure on my index finger from not being here having this conversation right now. And I had it all mapped out as to this and that. And I had rationalized things in my head in terms of, well, this, will make this person happy and it'll make that person happy. And maybe they'll get some life. And I mean, just so on and so forth, man. I just, it began to be so miserable that the quote unquote solution began to make more and more sense. And I'm just being real. That night, man, when I was at that moment, I mean, I broke, and quite honestly, for me, it was an experience of, I think that was the deepest valley that at least I'd ever had in my life up to that point. And I believe that God met me in that valley. Obviously I didn't go through with it. But I can absolutely relate to the darkest moment of that experience of, yeah, it makes sense. And I had the resolution to go through with it. I had the resolution where, yeah, I mean, it was the solution. It was the out. And so, man, that darkness, man, the voices, that conversation, like I said, it's not even a conversation. It's a monologue. It's just a barrage of negative thoughts that just can eat at you and grind at you. And it's torture. It's like waterboarding in Guantanamo Bay. And then eventually you just want to quit. Eventually you just want to go away. And eventually you just want the pain to stop. That's really what it comes down to. You just want the pain to stop. And I just wanted the pain to stop. I wanted my pain to stop. And I wanted the pain to stop that I felt like, or at least the messages that I had accepted, that I was inflicting on other people. I wanted to, I hated the experience of my kids crying at the table. I hated yet another failure in life. I hated all those kinds of things. And quite honestly, I hated myself. Like I said, I believe that if it wasn't for divine intervention in that moment, I would not be here. And so that whenever I hear anybody there, or whenever I hear anybody talking about just the whole scenario, or whenever I can just look at a guy sometimes and I can just tell, I had a good buddy of mine, kind of self-delete a year or two ago, maybe a couple years ago at this time. And, same thing, man, when you start to withdraw, when you start to pull back, when you start to isolate, that's kind of the beginning of the proverbial end. That's when you begin to go down that road, man. But that voice becomes so loud that it's almost comforting, because it gets so loud that it begins to make sense. And you know, and it's a dark road that you can't get back down really easily anyway. But I mean, it can just suck you in like a black hole in space.
Yeah, and this is why we want to have this conversation, because you're not the only one.
Mm-mm.
I've had those thoughts. I think maybe if I had a little different mindset, I would have been in the exact same situation several times. But it was just a matter of, like, I think probably maybe because I was just more of a punk and was like, I'm just not going to do that. I'll just, go over here and just take myself out of the situation or whatever. I'm not going to, I think probably because I was just like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or whatever. I'll just, do it slowly through drinking and drugs or smoking or whatever. So, we all have these thoughts. And I think that's the first thing we need to make okay is go, guess what? You're not the only one that has these thoughts. Most of us, probably 99 out of 100 people at some point, have these thoughts. And so what is really interesting is when you look at the evidence, there is almost none in the studies that mental health had anything to do with male self-canceling. It's basically they let that voice get out of control and they felt like, oh, I just need to, it'll be better off if I'm not here. But there is such a stigmatism around self-canceling and mental health that a lot of, especially guys, will not even go there and talk about that they're having those thoughts because they immediately think, oh, they're going to put me in a straitjacket and lock me up in the mental health ward. But for most guys, mental health is not even an issue. I mean, depression can be a disease. It can be clinical depression, and that's about the only thing that really looks like, as part of that study, is a mental health issue. Which, if we had more resources for men to talk, and we see it all the time. We've seen a lot of the TikTok videos and YouTube videos where they go, guys, when you're at your lowest, who do you talk to? And every single one of us, nobody cares. I'm a guy. My feelings don't matter. Only what I produce matters. So I just suck it up and move on. And that's what we wanted to dispel, is that we all feel that way. And it's okay to feel that way. And one of the things I want to talk about is that we need to make it okay to change that voice in our head to go, you know what? Yeah, it's okay to fail. It's okay to fall down. It's okay to get divorced. It's okay to lose a job. These things are life. These things happen. But we need to make it okay. But because of our social media narrative and everybody showing their curated life of how perfect they are and how great their lives are and everything else, and we're sitting there alone suffering, judging ourselves based on some curated narrative that isn't even real, then we make it not okay. We need to make it okay as men to go, I'm strong enough to get through this, and it's okay to fail. This is how I learn. This is how I gain wisdom. This is how I teach my children in the future. That it's okay to make mistakes and to learn and to grow, and it's not the end of the world, because you're more than those mistakes. You're more than your job. You're more than your money. You're more than everything.
Right. And even in the notion that it's okay to talk about those kinds of things. It's okay to be there as long as you don't stay there. You talk about, thinking you're the only one, man. You couldn't have told me that I wasn't the only guy with a 30-year addiction to pornography. I mean, that other guys struggled with it the same way I did. And that was the core of every broken relationship I ever had. That was the core of failed careers. And that was the bane of my existence. That was the reason why I was 50 pounds overweight. That was, and so in my mind, though, I was the only one that suffered from that. And suffered through that or in that. I was the only one that struggled with that. I was the only one that, that had those same thoughts of being addicted to something that had power over me that nothing else could, and to your point, ironically, hindsight, when I started to share my story, when I started to, when I got through that whole experience and when I started to share it, man, I had no idea. I was like, man, I mean, I've heard, yeah, me too, so many times from guys. I've heard that more. I've verbally heard that more time from guys than I've heard women use me too in their context. And so, the whole idea of you're not alone in that whole thing. You're not alone in those valleys. You're not alone in those experiences. It's huge because that's the crux of it. That's the core. That's why that valley is so dark, because it's deep and sunlight is hard to get in there. It's hard to penetrate that depth. But the feeling is absolutely like, man, I'm alone in this whole thing.
Yeah, and there is such a thing as a collective conscience, and everybody kind of goes. We all, as a society, go through different things kind of at the same time, and so it makes no sense for us to believe we're the only ones, because just like Kurt said, when you actually express, when you talk to somebody, you say what it is that you're so afraid of. Not probably 9 out of 10 of the people in the room will go, yeah, me too, and you realize it's not just you, and that's why having some sort of outlet, talk about writing it down. Even if you're not ready to go face to face, get on some sort of online, chat room or something and talk about it. You'll find out how many other guys deal with the exact same things the exact same way. Because honestly, in our Western culture, there's usually only a few, probably 1 to 5 different things that we use to numb and deal with our pain. It's usually drugs, alcohol, porn, sex, probably shopping or something like that, work. There's only a few things that we use to change our mindset or to focus on or to numb our pain. And of those things, everybody's either used them once or all of them at the same time, or they're, some combination of each one. So you're not alone in whatever it is you're doing. Porn is a really easy one, and you want to learn more about it and read this gentleman's book. But it is one of those things that, because of our chemical makeup in the brain and the dopamine hits and everything else, it can become an addiction, just like alcohol, just like drugs, and everything else.
And so many things will bring us to that dark moment. Whatever it is, man, whatever your thing is, it could absolutely bring you to the dark night of the soul, man, where you really think your only way out is to go away. And man, it's very real. It's not just made up. It's not in your head. It's a very real experience. But it is absolutely also a very real experience that whatever it is that you're going through, that a lot of guys have gone through or are going through at that very, very moment. And probably that very first crack in the glass to shatter the whole thing is the understanding and the awakening that you're not alone, man. And so
yeah, and it starts so young for us guys. It starts as from like basically the age of 7 on up. But there's great documentaries out there. One like The Mask We Live In is a great documentary talking to teenage kids about men, teenage boys, about how they deal with their stuff, and most of them put on the happy mask or the comic mask or the jock mask, or whatever, and that's what they use to cover up what they're actually feeling inside, because they don't feel safe to talk about those things. Yeah. And it's something we want to change and move forward with, and we'll move forward with this in segment 4 right after this break. Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City. We'll be right back, y'all.
You got that phone number handy?
There's several of them.
Really?
There's 988s. There's
1-800
number.
Oh wow.
There's 714.
Is 988 like the prefix, or is it like that's like a 911?
Yeah, it's like a 911 thing.
988. Oh, well. Wow, I didn't know that.
There's 988. There's the 1-800 number, and then there's also there's another one that's like you could text or something.
Wow. Word up. Cuckoo. Are you ready? Get some solution. Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 12:20 a.m. We're back. We're back. We're back.
I like that movie.
We are back. Welcome. In a world of chocolate chip cookies. There's a guy on the microphone that really wants to eat one right now.
And you make everybody pulling over to Dunkin' Donuts.
I'm telling you, man, these cookies look good, man. These cookies look good. These cookies can get somebody out of depression. Super producer Nikki Nicole. You need to make it your mission.
Your mission, if you choose to
rid the world of depression with your cookies. It can be done.
No, we wanted to talk about, bring this thing in for the fourth quarter and talk about some of the to-dos and some of the avenues and things out there that can be helpful for you if you are going through depression and having those thoughts that we all have at some point. But there is always a way out. So it's okay to have those thoughts as long as you don't act on them.
Mm-hmm. Boom. You know, like I said, I learned a lot through that experience, and one of the things I learned is that my purpose was in my pain the whole time. You know, it's like Dorothy with the shoes. You know, she had them on the whole time, and she could have got home whenever she wanted. She was wearing the shoes, and I was wearing my purpose in the form of my pain. And then once I went through that process, man, I realized that's when I discovered why I'm here. That's why I've discovered why 1 out of 400 trillion, the odds of me being here. And you know, one of the other things I discovered is that, you know, self-canceling lives at the intersection of hopelessness and isolation. And so when those two roads converge, if you find yourself there, you're in a very dangerous place. And so, you know, when you find hope fading, you got to make sure that you're not hope fading alone. You got to make sure you have depth. You got to make sure you have a circle of guys. I mean, you got to make sure you have a crew. You got to have a gang. You got to have an A team. I don't believe that a man that self-cancels is living full relationship and connection. I believe that he doesn't have intimacy in his life. And I'm not even talking about sexual intimacy here. I'm talking about deep relationships, in particular with other men. I don't think the two go hand in hand. I think if you have, you know, deep, strong relationships, or just relationships in circles of guys where you meet regularly, get together, where you see the same faces over and over again, you build trust and you can talk about something, you know, I think that is the one thing that has changed my life in the past 5 or 6 years for sure. Is experiencing deep relationship with other guys, man, where you can talk about that kind of stuff. So, man, I think that first and foremost is you can't find yourself in isolation. Even the Lone Ranger had Tonto, right? I mean, Navy SEALs don't go out and do it alone. You can go on and on and on. Even the fighter in the octagon or the fighter in the boxing ring has a whole corner of people there, in addition to the other people that are involved in the training process. So us as men, man, you got to get involved. You got to go to support groups. You got to reach out, you know, look up B Men, man. We both know these guys. We're both active and involved with that. You know, look up organizations like that. Look up, you know, whatever it is, man. But I mean, holler at us, man. We'll plug you into some place, but you got to get around other guys.
Yeah. And if you're struggling with depression and you're not sure what to do, there are several simple things you can do. Number one, do your best to turn off the TV, get off video games, clean your room, clean your kitchen. If you're not working, put yourself on some kind of schedule, because having a schedule, having a structure will help your circadian rhythms, will help get you back into sync with nature, so that you will be, you know, you'll feel less depressed. You'll be more on your natural rhythms, having more exercise, getting outdoors. And what we see a lot of nowadays, and we talked about on last episode, or when we're talking about kind of the feminist narrative nowadays and how it's kind of anti-men and it's pushing men away from a lot of these healthy things. So men are just naturally isolated. They're going, well, if they don't want me, I'll just sit in here and play video games and drink beer. Well, that may work for a weekend, but you continue doing that, and it grows exponentially and becomes more and more detrimental. So do the little things. Simplify your life. Clean your room, clean your kitchen, get out and exercise, do things. And these are just little steps. But first and foremost, as you're doing those things, make sure you make it as a priority on your to-do list to find a men's group, get out there and talk to somebody, find a support group. Because if we don't make it okay, and we were all trained that to express our emotions is weakness, and we know how hard it is to express our emotions and to talk about our struggles. Well, that's the new strength, to be able to be a man and express yourself as a man with struggles, with emotions. That is the new strength, and that's what we need to push out in the world and make okay. Is that as a man, it is okay and it is stronger. You are a stronger man by expressing your emotions, expressing your struggles, so that you can maybe find your purpose. Because I think I wrote my first or second book, one of them. Your childhood traumas a lot of times hold the key to your life's purpose. And you look back on what you struggled with, and if you can heal those things by helping others, then you will find a purpose in life that will keep you going, that will fill your sails, that will get you out of depression, that will show you a purpose in life that maybe you were lacking before.
It just hit me. Every guy should start playing golf.
Man, yeah. You can suck that, it don't matter.
Every guy should start playing golf. And here's why. First of all, when you play golf, you're normally you tend to start going to play golf with the same people or the same guy there. So there's the repetitiveness of that. You're outdoors, you're in the weather, you're in the elements, you're getting vitamin D. You're talking because you're together literally shoulder to shoulder for 2 or 4 hours or so, and you get the failures, you get the celebrations, you get the lucky shots, you get the hole in one like I did last summer. I don't care if it was a par 3 or short one. Still, you ain't done it. But I mean, you get that. I mean, you don't have to know how. I mean, it's one of those things, man. It was the greatest opportunity. I think it's one of the greatest sports because it is so frustrating. But you can have one shot and it can make your whole day. But I think that's hugely important. And again, back to transparency. When I was in that dark night of the soul, one of the things that snapped me out of it was a flash to my son who was adopted out of foster care. We adopted him out of foster care, and he had when he came to us, he had lost everything. I mean, he had lost everything. I mean, in terms of relationships, nobody that he knew before was in his life. All of his clothes were different. He had reset his entire life. And I mean this literally. This is not an illustration. I had a flash in my mind, as real as it was in front of me, of him yelling and screaming at me to not leave him as well, that he had lost everything. And I mean, he wasn't there physically, but it was almost like he was there in the present, screaming and crying to me, like, don't you leave me too. And I will tell you that that's the image that broke me. And I broke down in my tears, in my heart, my soul, my mind. And for the guy that may be on the verge or may find yourself on the verge, trust me, man, there is sunlight on the other side of that storm. And had I went through with that night, I would have not seen him accomplish the things that he's accomplished so far. I would have not had the opportunity to give him tools that he can use. I would have missed out on so many beautiful things in life that I never thought was possible in that moment because of how miserable life was. But just looking back now, the reason I was such a ball of mess when he graduated boot camp a couple months ago and he's about to fly into town tomorrow night. I would have missed all of that. I would have missed all of that.
And that's a great point, because even in the research I was doing last night, having to go through all the YouTube filters for the S word and everything else, one of them, the one that actually had me balling, was a gentleman who had lost his son. And when he learned about it, when he researched it, when he broke it down basically after his son left, he realized that his son was emulating him because he'd been raised up in just like us, we didn't suck it up and provide and protect. And his way of raising his son was to protect him from the world, protect him from himself, and not show his weakness, not show his struggles, not let his son know that, yes, I had bullies too, and yes, I struggled, and yes, I went through these things as well at your age. And because he was, quote unquote, protecting his son from those things, his son didn't have the tools or didn't even have the awareness that, oh, other people are doing this as well. He thought he was alone. And that's one of the things as parents, as adults, as guardians, we have to be more transparent with our kids and let them know that they're not the only ones, especially when they're teenagers, because it's such a hard time in life. They're going from childhood into adulthood, and their hormones, everything's going on. And then that's some of the most evil experiences you have in life, as being in middle school and high school. And the kids are just awful, and they don't have any impulse control. They say all these things, and they're just bullies and nasty. And if they don't have a safe place with you to talk, if they don't realize you dealt with those same things, they may think that they don't have an outlet and that they are alone. And so us as parents, we need to give of ourselves in transparency and let them know that we are human beings too, and that we don't have all the answers, but that we went through it too, and that this too shall pass, and it will get better.
Your family needs you. Your kids need you. I don't care if they are acting like they hate you right now. One day down the road, they're gonna come back to you, and they're gonna need you. Your friends need you. Your brothers need you. There's people that you don't even know that's looking to you for inspiration because they admire something about you. The fact that you are a survivor, the fact that you are, a warrior, the fact that you've made it through everything that you've made it through in life, the fact that you're still here. There are so many people that need you, and that would, when I was at my buddy's, services that, a year and a half ago, I mean, just, the outpouring of love of just like, man, this was the greatest guy. And I can tell you the world is not the same without him in it. I miss Darren so much, man. And I know in his case, there was a lot of mental health issues. And I know in his case, man, he had a lot of toughness, but, and I also know that he has at the time, a 6-year-old son that he loved dearly, and his son, unfortunately, is going to have to grow up with that, kind of passed down. And, I heard somewhere that a lot of times kids are more likely when parents do it and all those kinds of things. And so, but you are valuable, you are important, and the world needs you, that gift that you have. I don't care what that voice says inside of your head. We need you. All of us need you. What about some resources, man? You got some phone numbers?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's the new one, the 988 that you can call. There's if you just want to text, there's 7471. You can call the 1-800 number. It's 1-800-273-8255 to get to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. But if anything else, remember, this is your life. This is what you make of it. And if your life has gotten so hard that you think you need to self-cancel, leave whatever your situation is and make a change. You have the right to change your life in any way, shape, or form. You can pack up your bag, sell off all your stuff. You can move to the other side of the world, and you can start over. You can do anything that you want to do. And any of those things will be better than self-canceling and taking yourself out. Because to Kurt's point, you are more important than you know. You have more impact than you know. And I think, especially for us guys, we need to start letting each other know the impact that they have in our lives, the impact that we see that they bring into the world, so that when they're down, when that voice is in your head, they can use that little tidbit and go, okay, so-and-so said this, and I can hold on to that. That's my anchor. I can hold on to that to get me through this dark night of the soul.
That's a great point, man. Guys, reach out to a dude. Holler at a brother, man. Just let a brother know you're thinking about him. Just text somebody. What's up, man? I got your back. Just text somebody, just a quick, I got your back, man. I mean, there's a gift that Snoop Dogg saying, I got your back. Just text somebody, check in on a dude. When you got that brother who is isolating, who's pulling back, who's pulling away, reach out to him and don't let him get away with that, man. Call him out on it and don't let him get away with it, man. Do an intervention. But we as guys need to check on each other, man. There's too many of us tapping out, man, and we need all the numbers we can get because we need the support, man. There's a lot of battles out here that we need men to fight.
And there's a question you can ask, because we always ask, how you doing? But that's so rote now that people just say fine.
Mm-hmm.
But now you can add, and it's one of the things I researched today that I thought was profound. You can say, how you doing, 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And let that man know that it's safe to say 1 or 2 or 3. Let them know that when you're asking, you really care. So I'm going to say, how are you, 1 to 10. And I want an honest answer so we can talk about this and unpack this once you hear tomorrow.
Let's just start doing that, man. Let's do that. Let's text a bunch of guys. How you doing, 1 to 10? How you doing, 1 to 10, man? And just copy and paste that. I'm gonna do that, man. Over the next 24 hours, man, I'm gonna text 30 guys.
Dudes you hadn't talked to.
I'm gonna text 30 guys. How you doing, 1 to 10?
Just something like that. We'll start a movement. We'll start the conversation, and we'll make men more healthy in so many different ways.
Boom. And we're definitely here. Reach out to us, man. We'll holler at us. We're not mental health professionals. We can definitely help you connect with some guys. If you're going through divorce, we know a divorce men support group. If you're just a guy and you just want other guys, men's groups, all this other kind of stuff. Reach out to your boys, man. We're here for you, man. We love you.
We're mental, but we're here to help.
We need you. We need you. And so we love all y'all. And with that, Mad Men out.